In this video, what we're going to do is we're going to turn this car here and we're going to turn it into a cartoon car so it looks like this. And how do we take this Chevy Volt and modify it so much? Well, it's the use of layers. So I'm going to start by opening the car, the original. So if I have the original here, what I'm going to start by doing is I'm going to take the bitmap tool and I'm going to zoom in a fair bit here, maybe 200 or 300%, as much as I can sort of fit on the screen and edit. And this is probably not too bad. And I'm going to carefully cut out the front of the wheel well. So I'm going to carefully do this. Of course, I'm not being very careful now because I'm demoing. But you'll get the idea pretty quick of what I'm doing. Once I've got this selected with the lasso object, I'm going to cut it out and I'm going to create a new layer by clicking on the new bitmap layer. Let me paste it back in so it's going to look like there's nothing different, but it is different. It's on a separate layer. So if I'm on this layer, I'll see it. But if I'm on the bottom layer, I won't see it. Okay, let's move to the back of the car, and we're going to do the same thing to the back of the car. Let me just zoom out a smidgen because I can't quite get it. Okay, so with the back of the car, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use the lasso, and I go on the door seam. So I want to use that seam. Oops, I should have nailed the seam a little better. But like I said, I'm trying to rush for this, and you'll do a much better job. Great. So I've got this, and again, I'm going to cut this out, and I'm going to stick this on another layer as well. Okay. Once I've got these on two separate layers, let me zoom out a bit here so we can see the whole car. And looking at the whole car, you'll see, I'll undo the front and back, you'll see the middle section there, and that's just fine. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to select this middle layer here, and I'm going to squish it. I'm going to go Modify, Transform, and Free Transform, let's say. And I'm going to grab the front and squish it a lot. I'm going to grab the back and squish it a lot. And so now I've really taken that picture, and about half the size is this bubbled up car that's squished. And what makes a cartoon car look good is the wheels I wouldn't want squished, then you just say it's a squished car. But by adding the front and rear wheels, I can really get it to look like a real car, and that it's been modified and sort of a little funky. So I put it in place, and it's pretty close. Most of it is going to match, especially at this, and I might even zoom in a little bit more so I can sort of fine-tune where things should be. And actually, that was pretty good on my first attempt there. So I'm going to put it right about there. I'm going to go to the back, and I'll select the back layer, so this layer here, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'll take the trunk and the door line, and I'm going to squish and put it right about there. Okay, there's some errors, some places that are missing, right? You can see through here, right here, I've got to make some pixels that don't exist. So how do I do that? Well, a number of things we're going to do for this. One of the first things, I can take all three layers now that I got it in fairly close to where I want it, and I can go Modify and Flatten. And that's going to put all three back together. And so now when I look at my car, all three are back together. The next thing I'm going to want to do with my car is I'm going to want to take this car, and I'm going to use the stamp tool, and let me zoom in here a little bit, and I'm going to stamp, and as I go to stamp, I'll press the Alt key to select where I'm going to stamp, and then I go over, and then I'm just going to start stamping as I go below what should be from the area beside it. Now, as I get to some of these areas, so this is going to turn out pretty good for here, and I can make that up. And again, I'm just rushing this, and I'd get you to do a much better job for this. But you can see pretty quick it's a good match. Some other things I might do is in here I need to stamp from a different direction, so I'll use the stamp tool and go from a different direction, and so I can kind of fill in here with some black and so forth. And then finally I might even go back to stamping to and fill from above to get some of that off that I want. Okay, whoops, didn't want the stamp there. Other tool I want you to use is the blur tool. Sometimes I'll blur some things here where the joints are, just to kind of soften things up. Again, I'll take the properties and I'll change the size and intensity of the blur. Sometimes it's a lot more blur than others, and so forth, and especially along edges. And the final result, as I showed in the beginning, will be something like this. This was the one I previously did in the class. And so you'll see I have this cartoon version that came from the extended car. Okay, so I took the extended car and ended up with the cartoon version.